Welcome back to Kings of the North from Big Ten Media Days in Indianapolis. We finished day 2 on Wednesday, which means you're watching this on our Thursday show. Doug Lesmerises and Bill Landis. Here's who's coming at you for interviews from Big Ten Media Days. We're going to start with Iowa linebacker Jay Higgins, one of the best defensive players in the Big Ten, right?
Absolutely. Maybe best linebacker in the country.
He would have loved to hear that from you.
But like best off-ball linebacker in the country is in the conversation.
Loved it. Would have loved to hear that from you. Number 2, Matt Rhule, the Nebraska coach. We stop and have a little conversation with him. Then we have Audrey Snyder, who is not a coach and is not a player, but she's a great reporter who covers Penn State. And I thought the three of us had a pretty good, interesting discussion. It's about some things that James Franklin, the Penn State coach, said on Wednesday. And one of them was that Penn State's one of the few places in the country where you can win 10 or 11 games and people aren't happy. And we sort of talked about that.
Yeah, whether or not we think that's true or think it should be true.
Or think it should be true.
Yeah.
Then we have Nathan Carter, who's really interesting. He just got married. I didn't ask him about that. Mike, our producer, noticed. He's like, I had a wedding ring on. It's like, he just got married this offseason.
Oh, wow.
He's running back at Michigan State. We talked with him, and then Ben Scott, the Nebraska center, fifth-year player who's going to be snapping the true freshman Dylan Raiola.
Yeah.
I guess, or some people acting like Dylan Raiola is not going to be the starting quarterback here. Like, of course
he is. I'm sure like Matt Rhule might do the coach speak thing, but like we all know the score.
Yeah. So we have Ben Scott on, and then from USC and UCLA, we're going to talk about this in a second. We did have some people on, even though it's sunny there. We have Jonah Monheim, who's one of the better offensive linemen in the Big Ten, right?
Yeah, starting center for USC. I think will probably like be in that Remington Trophy conversation at the end of the year.
Yeah. And so you know, he kind of looks like a Viking. So we kind of thought maybe he should be up the north.
I told him he has a northern look. It's the best compliment I've ever paid anybody.
And then we talked with Martin Jarmond, the UCLA AD, who worked at Michigan State, Ohio State, and Boston College before he went to UCLA. He was an assistant AD at Michigan State and Ohio State, then the full AD at BC. So he has deep northern roots. And I think an interesting conversation about him wanting to get UCLA into the Big Ten, but also, as was brought up to his face, it's sunny there.
Yeah.
So those are our conversations, but just briefly, what do you think we should do with USC and UCLA? This show currently covers 26 Power 4 Northern college football teams. We're going to add 2 more. But if it snows at your campus, we talk about you. If it doesn't, we don't talk about you. But in this 18-team Big Ten, there are 2 schools where it doesn't snow.
Mm-hmm.
So should we ignore USC and UCLA? Should we embrace USC and UCLA? Should we give them the side eye? Are they our northern cousins who moved? What are they?
It's an interesting conversation because clearly we cover some of the Big 12, but not all of the Big 12 because of geography and snow. But also the Big 12 is not necessarily a northern conference, right? It just feels weird to not talk about any program in the Big 10 when the Big 10 is the quintessential northern conference, right? So I do think we need to treat them differently than we treat like Arizona and Arizona State. Allies? But they're not really like, yeah, I guess they're allies. Maybe.
But they live in a foreign land. Los Angeles. Yeah.
Yeah. What, we did sister schools.
Yeah. What we can't do is pretend that Southern California is the North. We will not do that. There will be no USC or UCLA players eligible to win King of the North. Yeah. And we're not going to rank Miller Moss among Northern quarterbacks. We're just not going to do that.
Yeah.
But I also don't think we'll pretend they don't exist. We won't go that far. We'll talk about them. We'll talk about them more than we talk about most probably non-northern schools. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think maybe Mike is suggesting here. It's I think in the North, we're all brothers in arms, right?
Mm-hmm.
Come on, we're all brothers and sisters, and we're just we're a family.
Mm-hmm.
We're family. And they're our cousins. Maybe our weird cousins.
Depending on how good they are, the cousins talk to them, maybe you don't talk to them.
Yeah. Well, we were talking to Jonah Monheim, and it's he has some family in the North, but he doesn't see them all the time.
You call them distant relatives.
Yeah.
So that's what USC and UCLA can be for us. They're our distant relatives.
They might even be second cousins.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, we're going to have one more day of coverage. We have on Thursday, the interviews on Thursday, the big ones, Michigan and Oregon. or all of the North. Washington will be here too. So we'll be hoping to talk to people around those programs. Yep. But this show is we hit everybody. There were 6 schools that were at Big Ten Media Days on Wednesday, and on this Thursday, King to the North, we wound up talking to or talking about all of them.
Even the second cousins.
Even the second cousins, because they're people too.
Mm-hmm.
They just live where it's sunny, and we hate sun. Let's start it off with Jay Higgins of Iowa. Here with Jay Higgins, Iowa linebacker, and the guy that I voted as the preseason Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. No, come on, when I did that off the air, you like gave me a handshake. You were like, yeah.
No, it feels good to be appreciated. You know, and it's, I don't know, I feel like I've always been the underdog. So I feel like I play week to week, and I try to battle, and, you know, he's just that little Iowa linebacker. So it feels good when people, you know, they see what you're doing.
So this is the comparison I said I'd drop on you. In, I guess, 2012, 13, and not 12, in the Heisman Trophy voting that year, it was like either Johnny Manziel or Manti Te'o. And I voted for Manti Te'o first on my Heisman ballot because I thought Notre Dame was a defense-first team, and I thought he, as a linebacker, was the leader and the heartbeat and the quarterback of the defense. So I thought, well, if this was an offense-first team that was this good, you'd vote for the quarterback. So I'm going to vote for the quarterback who just happens to play linebacker. And with what I think Iowa football can be this year, that's kind of how I'm thinking about you heading into this season, of what your place might be in the Big Ten, in college football, because you are a quarterback. You're just on defense.
Yeah, and I'm a quarterback who's got tools, who's got weapons all over the field. And, you know, it's easy for me to go out there and play loose and play free because I know I got dudes who got my back. And not dudes who I think are just because they're good teammates, like dudes who've logged some snaps, who've logged some tackles. Nick Jackson came to Iowa with 400 tackles. Like, what? You know what I mean? He needs 117 to beat the record. Sebastian Castro tackled anything that moved.
Yeah.
Quinn Schulte knows what play's about to happen before it happens.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm quarterbacking guys who don't need to be quarterback. I can just, you know, fly around, make some tackles, and, you know, tell media we're all a big happy family.
Yeah. No, that's good, man. Because I think your defense and the Ohio State defense are similar in that they were very high-level defenses, among the 10 best in the nation last year, and they brought back so many guys. What is it like when you play with guys who have been around so much, and the talent's there, but also the experience is there?
The first thing I learned is practice is practice, and Saturday is Saturday, meaning it doesn't matter how many times we walk through this play. It doesn't matter what they said the guard was going to do, what they said the receiver is going to do. When you get in there on Saturday and bullets are flying and everything's going left and right and nothing's like it was supposed to be, you gotta look to your guys who need to bring it back together. And when you gotta check a play on the spot, when you gotta change a defense, when you go out there for the first series, come to the sideline, Coach Parker says, no, different game plan. I want to do that with a guy who's logged some snaps. I want to do that I want to do that with the guy who has the mental capacity to go into a game with a game plan. One series goes by and we're scratching it all. No offense to the younger kid, I don't trust a younger guy to do that. I trust a guy who's got who's been in those situations before.
When you are a veteran like yourself, what is your relationship like with Phil Parker?
Oh, I'm his right hand man. He's obviously the play caller, and he sees some things that I can't see, and I see some things he can't see. You know, if he wants me in a pass look and a man-to-man look, and I see this right guard licking his chops, looking at me, I'm gonna make sure I get a heavy technique in front of him. I'm gonna make sure I get us out of that look, and you know he trusts me with that. You know, and then there's the times where it's like I could be wrong. Like I could tell these dudes it's a run and it's a 50-yard bomb down the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Or I could tell these dudes it's a pass and it's I pro up the A gap. And that's just a relationship we have. He trusts me to make those decisions. And when I know I can't do any wrong, when I know he's going to live and die with any decision I make, it helps me be more confident out there. And that's really the relationship we have. Whatever he's trying to accomplish, it's my job to get it done.
Nice. Last one before I let you go. You're from Indy. We like keeping good players in the north here. Why was Iowa the place for you, and did you ever think about going somewhere south?
Want the real answer? Ooh, I did get the Tulane offer.
Stay here. You're good. We got you here. We got you here.
No, it's different. Like I'm a Midwestern kid. You know what I mean? There's something about a little chill. Something about wearing no sleeves that I hang my hat on. There's something about playing in snow. There's something about Thanksgiving when the Redskins are playing the Cowboys. Like there's something about the game of football when it gets cold, and I like that. I wanted to stay here. You throw a little Vaseline on your arms to break the wind chill, but you're putting sleeves on in this conference. I don't know.
Vaseline to break the wind chill. They're not doing that in the SEC. This man is a king of the North. We appreciate you being here, Jay Higgins. Best of luck this year.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
Here on Kings of the North with Matt Rhule. You belong in the North, Matt, right? Come on. Penn State, Temple, Nebraska, I think is the right place for you.
I love Nebraska. And I'm a Northern guy.
What do you have, like playing football in the snow kind of stories from when you were a young man?
Yeah, I mean, I remember my last game of my senior year. We were in the Pennsylvania PIAA. We were in the state semifinals. We lost to Upper St. Clair. It was literally like 8 feet of snow around the field. They plowed the field at Mansion Park in Altoona in Pennsylvania. And yeah, so that was one. And then when I was at Penn State, I remember I wasn't playing yet, but played Michigan. It was a snowball game. They had to get the inmates from the state prison to come in and get the snow out. And every time Michigan would catch a ball, someone would throw a snowball and hit them. So that's real football.
That's what we're talking about, man. They don't have that in Georgia and Alabama. That's what we're talking about. There's something to that, I think, a little bit. Now, you don't want to play every game in the snow, but there's a little bit of a culture to that.
There's no doubt. But it's like I go back 2 years ago to the college football playoff when TCU and Michigan played.
Yeah. And
I know they played neutral site, bowl game, but had that been a home playoff game at Michigan, no disrespect to TCU, it might have been a little different.
Yeah.
So I think weather is a part of this game. That's why what I like about the Big Ten is it mirrors the NFL, and that you have to play in different time zones, different weather, and everything's not just in the same weather.
Are there things about your experiences at Penn State, playing there, the fan base, the passion there, that you see any similarities with Nebraska, the fan base, the passion there?
Oh yeah, I mean people wear their colors year long. People love their team. Penn State fans are amazing. Nebraska fans are amazing. So I think you're talking about two blue blood perennial winning programs. I've been blessed to be a part of both of them.
When you think about it, and you would do this anywhere, you have done it anywhere. You've brought programs from a place to a higher level. The opportunity to do that at a place like Nebraska, though, I'm sure you've pictured it in your head. The passion is already there. It never wanes. But when Nebraska football is back to the Nebraska standard, what's it going to be like?
Well, I think when I went to Temple, it was a place that I loved because I've been an assistant coach there. So bringing it back meant something to me. When I went to Baylor, it was a Baptist university. My dad's a minister. I felt like I was doing something right for like a Baptist university to get back to its mission and core and doing things the right way on and off the field. This is something that would be great for college football.
Yes, sir.
Like, getting Nebraska back to a program that is feared across the nation. That's what college football needs. We need Ohio State to be great, Michigan to be great. But we also need Nebraska to be great, and Iowa to be great, and Colorado to be great. So I trust me, that's a very big part of the way I look at things.
And we know, you just look at who's won national championships. They play great football in the South. We understand that. But I do think, like, when you look at the world right now, when you look at something like the Big Ten, when you look at NIL opportunities, I think we could be approaching a world where Ohio State and Michigan and Nebraska and Penn State and Oregon and Washington and Utah and some of these schools up here are competing at the highest level of the sport. I think the North in the next 10 years will be absolutely as competitive as Southern football is, because I think there are programs ready to take advantage of opportunities.
Yeah, I think once we standardize like what the playoff system is, I mean, when you have one league playing 8 games, one league playing 9 games, there's different rules, different things start to happen. It's a lot of conjecture. We saw this past year with Michigan. I mean, Michigan won it. I mean, the Big Ten's very much alive, and I want football to be great in the South and the SEC. I want it to be great in Texas. I want it to be great in the North. I want it to be great nationally because it'll keep it strong.
And Michigan-Washington national title game. When you watch that, is there anything of like, okay, those are great programs, but as I watch that, if they can do that, Nebraska can get back to that.
Well, I think when I think about Nebraska and the lull we've had, I think about Georgia before really Mark Richt, and then obviously now Kirby's done. I think about Alabama before Saban. I think about Michigan before Coach Harbaugh was there.
Absolutely.
All these programs had hit periods of necessarily irrelevance. So Oklahoma had a long down period before Bob Stoops got there. So, a place like Nebraska, they've done it, so you can do it. We just have to go do it.
He's Matt Rhule. He's in the North. We're glad he's here. Matt, thank you for joining us on Kings of the North.
All right, thank you, my friend.
Joined now by Audrey Snyder, Penn State writer at The Athletic, longtime friend of Bill Landis, and she's mad at me. Do you want to start with why you were mad at me, Audrey?
Oh, was it Doug? Was that you? I didn't hear
What?
you. Were you talking to me?
I'm old and I'm feeble,
Mm-hmm.
and that's my excuse.
Keep going.
And I admire your coverage of Penn State. You are the queen of State College, and I apologize for not sending you an email to be in our poll. I kind of thought that I did, but I didn't.
And it's not even the first time this has happened, Doug. The last few years, I have been a non-voting member of the poll, and every
right?
time the poll
For
comes
real?
out,
Is it last
it's been a
couple
few years. Yeah, it's been a few. And the poll comes out, and I retweet it because
You do.
trying to be a nice person.
You did retweet it very
And then
quickly and helpfully.
And somebody mentioned they weren't happy with where Michigan was, and they said, "Oh, is it because of the coaching change? What was the reason behind the Michigan vote?" And I said, "To be clear, I'm not a voter in this poll. However, so Doug, I just I thought I'd come here, air my grievances as one does on this show with you."
This is why I want to have Kirk Ferentz on the show, because I want him to come on and air grievances. I am here for grievances to be aired to my face. Let's talk about Penn State football. James Franklin here at Big Ten Media Days said, we're one of the few programs where you can win 10 or 11 games and people aren't happy. I'm paraphrasing. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with that sentiment, Audrey?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of angst among Penn State fans that they're habitually 10-2. But now, 10-2, and you're like, okay, this new Big Ten, we all need to reframe our minds. 10-2, you're probably going to the playoff. But the problem is that it was that star-studded East Division where you go 10-2, but you lose to Ohio State, you keep losing to Michigan, right? So, you can't get past that. So even if you do get in the playoff now, you're going to have to play an elite team. And last year didn't help with you go to the Peach Bowl, you play Ole Miss, and they put together one of their worst games of the year. And then they'll say, well, yeah, we had a lot of opt-outs. And they did. But again, you had a chance to beat an elite opponent and you can't. So now, Doug, I don't even know if getting in the playoff is good enough for them, for the fan base. If you get in, I almost feel like you have to then win a game to prove that you're maybe a cut above. Right, then the great not yet elite, right? James will always be chasing that comment.
I thought that Penn State being unrivaled and not having to play Ohio State, Michigan, Oregon, whoever else may rise up in the Big Ten every year would be a good thing for them. But now you're making it sound like it's a bad thing because now it's of course you got into the playoff. Show us something when you get there.
Yeah, and you look at the schedule this year, right?
Yeah.
So they don't play Oregon, they don't play Michigan. So they're getting a favorable break. Washington, of course, with the rebuild comes to Beaver Stadium. Ohio State, of course, comes to Beaver Stadium. Now, they got to go to USC and they got to go to Wisconsin. Those are two tough games. There's a world, and they open up at West Virginia, where you're 8-4, maybe, I don't think so, but 9-3, perhaps. But again, you got to play Ohio State. And I was on the record last year. I talked about it with you last season. I thought, this was their best chance to compete with Ohio State because of the quarterback position. And I had part of the equation right.
Yes.
I just didn't think that Penn State's offense would be that bad.
So we can't let this happen.
What, me not voting?
Oh,
not that.
brings it back.
I was on a cruise this summer and I was playing the newlywed game, and the husbands were in the little bar on the side while the wives were on stage answering the questions, and they gave us a free drink. And So where it's like, hey, what do you do? Whatever. And I explain what I do. And one of the other guys is a Penn State grad.
Oh boy.
And I'm like, oh yeah, college football.
Did he boo
playoff.
you? Oh,
If he read you, he would boo me. I'm like 12. I said, I think the 12-team playoff is built for Penn State. I think they have a chance to take advantage of this more than any other program. And he takes a sip of his free drink and says, yeah, but I almost don't want them to make the playoff if they're just going to lose their first game. And then you just said the exact same thing, and it makes me want to rip my headphones off and stop covering college football.
I know.
We cannot live in a world where we are expanding access and Penn State's like, oh, well, we lost in the first round. You made the playoff. Are we really going to be angry?
Are we going to hang banners for playoff appearances?
Yes.
Is that the?
We must.
But
We must. Wouldn't Penn State hang a banner for the Sweet 16 in basketball? Would they hang a banner for the Sweet
Doug.
16? And I know, but Duke hangs banners for the Sweet 16.
They'd hang more than a banner there. They'd probably rename the Bryce Jordan Center after Mike Rhodes.
We can't live in a world where making the playoff and losing your first game is getting your coach fired.
No, and I think
can't.
there is a lot to that, and that's kind of been the argument with the 14 playoff. It was always, okay, Penn State, you had a good year. You were 10-2. And I think, Doug, what this ultimately comes down to, and it's right here in this facility, 2016, Penn State wins the Big Ten, beats Wisconsin. The expectations were set too high too early. And they haven't gotten back to that point since, right? So everybody kind of measures it with that. Obviously the year they upset Ohio State, win the Big Ten, and it's like, well, you peaked, and it's been downhill since. In some regards. Now, you've had the stability piece, and this is where I think the fan base gets a little bit off kilter, is the fact that you're going 10-2 and they're mad about it. 10-2 at a place like Penn State, that is still really good. But I think you've got a lot of fans that, again, they want the playoff, or even when it was the 14 playoff, or they wanted they wanted to be in that. And it's realistically, you are not in that top cusp, that that upper echelon. You got to hope that you can catch lightning in the bottle one of those years like they had in 2016, right? That's, I think, your
and they
best
should have made the
chance.
playoff in 2016.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that's which pretty crazy what if, right? If they get in there, who knows? That Joe Moorhead offense, you never know. Saquon Barkley, what happens?
They wouldn't have gotten shut out by Clemson.
Point against Clemson.
Yeah. I mean, then you take it and you say, okay, well, the following year when Ari Wasserman jinxed it and told me I'd be covering a really good playoff game at the half, and then ends up Penn State loses in Columbus. If they win that game, right? I think that changes so much of the perception. But instead, it's well, you beat Ohio State once, James. That's not good enough. You can't beat Michigan. And I think too, the fact that Michigan had the success it had under Harbaugh, while James Franklin, again, there's similar timelines, even though sanctions with Penn State, obviously different scenarios. I think that angered a lot of fans too, just because it was hey, look they were able to do this and we still can't.
Yeah, I do want, because I don't disagree, Doug, with expanded playoff. Let's make it mean something to actually get in. But Penn State might also be among less than a handful of teams where you're in a weird in between. It's no, we're that's not good enough. We need to win national championships.
But they haven't won a national championship since '86, right?
No, I
wasn't alive.
I wouldn't agree with that sentiment if that does exist, but it seems like it does.
There are fans that, yes, and that's the crazy thing. And I think that's where, if you're James Franklin, you're trying to not even rationalize, but you're just trying to be okay, well, where is this coming from? Because I think there is the perception, and I hear from a lot of fans that say, well, yeah, but look at Georgia. Look what Georgia's been able to do with Kirby and have the facilities and all these other things. And then they think Penn State is that, right? And it's different. And I get it. You're a fan for a reason. You're fanatical. You don't want to think about your program in that light where State College is not the most appealing place for everyone to go, right? It's not a vacation destination. James Franklin was bringing the airport up today, right? It's a tough place to get in and out of. So there's a lot of factors at play there. We hear so much about NIL and how, hey, Ohio State's better than us with NIL. What do we need to do to compete with them? So you get so many factors, but I think a lot of the fans think this is a top 5 program. And here's probably the craziest part of this. This is the year that they were built for, with Drew Aller, Nick Singleton, Katron Allen, Abdul Carter. After this year, you're going to have to reset. So that to me is where it's okay, what is success? And I'm curious, I want to ask James Franklin when he talks, how do you define success this year with the expanded playoff?
And that's one of the things, to me, it's maybe the number one thing we want to do on this show is help fans define success.
Yeah.
Because Nebraska would kill to be Penn State. Nebraska wants to be Penn State. And Penn State wants to be Ohio State. And Ohio State wants to be Alabama. And if the result is that nobody's happy, then
Hey, there goes the guy we're talking
then
about.
what? Just get out of here so James Franklin can sit down.
I'm sure he'd come over if it was me.
It's sports. It's supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
And if you're 2-10, it might not be that fun. But and I know enough of it from Ohio State fans and the super high standard at Ohio State, like to be miserable during an 11-1 season is just no way to live. And to be miserable during a 10-2 season is no way to live. But if the 10-2 season is like getting you to the Citrus Bowl and you've been to the Citrus Bowl and I'm sick of the Citrus Bowl and what does it mean? And everybody's going to opt that anyway. Yeah. Okay. If it's getting you in the playoff and the playoff is going to be awesome, can we please be happy about it?
And you're going to get a home playoff game, probably. Are they going to play their playoff games at home or are they going to try to play?
Oh, yeah, it'll be Beaver State. That's why they did the winterization. So the stadium will be ready to go, even though like they're doing a renovation that'll take a few years to get done. But yeah, I mean, this place. Like, can you imagine State College with hosting a home playoff game?
And they'll play that at night. They'll play that at night. Oklahoma at Penn State on Friday night for the first playoff game.
Yeah,
like a 7-10.
Yeah.
Like it'll be the biggest Penn State game since the '86 national championship game.
You know what, Doug? You say that, and I'm thinking, man, I could put my house on Airbnb. Maybe they'll let me sleep in the press box, friend's couch.
I actually was going to ask if I could stay at your house because we might be covering.
Well, yes. Well, maybe if I get a vote, maybe I'll consider it. But no vote, no stays. This is how it works.
So we're contextualizing thought process, fans' appreciation of what is Andy Kotelnicki going to change this program? New offensive coordinator, and then we can talk about Tom Allen as a defensive coordinator. But when we watched the Ohio State-Penn State game last year, it was like, is Drew Aller allowed to throw the ball more than 8 yards down the field? And then they got behind and they had a good drive at the end of the game, and you're playing a prevent defense. But like James Franklin said it up there, we've got to be more explosive. Do you think they will be more explosive?
They have to be. Okay. And I think there's got to be a commitment to it. And it looked so much last year, like you're watching Drew Aller and it looks like you're watching a quarterback who was afraid to make a mistake.
Yep.
Right. And that to me was like, James mentioned it today. He's like, well, you have this great touchdown to interception ratio. And I was like, who cares? Like literally everybody's looking at this. And you're like, yeah, this was a 5-star quarterback supposed to be a game changer. And he looked gun shy. Right. Like that's a problem. But I do think, Andy Kotelnicki, his creativity is going to be good. I mean, you've got 2 really good running backs that you've got to utilize. Now, the receiving core can I call him a friend of show? Julian Fleming? Was he a friend formerly of King once of the North, but really,
he's still in the North. He's still king of the North.
I mean, they're going to have to ask a lot of Julian Fleming, right? And you got to keep him healthy. I think Harrison Wallace will be really good in terms of that explosive, deep, big play threat. But yeah, they have to be explosive. And I mean, that offense last year was downright bad. I mean, it was really putrid. And so it's kind of crazy that here we are going into year 3 of Drew Aller, and we're like, how good is he? Right? Like, is this, I mean, so much of this year, the scrutiny is going to be, is he a first-round pick? Right? Is he a top 10 pick? Is he a guy who goes in the first 3 rounds? Is he back next year? We do not know right now, which is pretty crazy.
You can ask about Tom Allen because I want to ask you, we crown a king of the North at the end of every football season.
Ooh.
Last year was Michael Penix, deserved winner. I already want to give the crown to Abdul Carter.
Yeah.
Should I wait? Should I wait? Like, I let him actually play a game before I do that, or is he going to be the best defensive player in the country?
I'd start sizing him up for the crown now.
Wow. Okay. Did you tell her your pick? Your pick along with that?
She was on Kings of Columbus a week or 2 ago, and I told her I said I thought Abdul Carter will lead the country in sacks.
And that's when I had to make sure it just wasn't Bill's Philly bias. So I had to kind of vet him a little bit on that.
You're such a good reporter, Audrey. I really respect you.
I was digging deep, not enough to give me a vote, but hey, here we are.
Fine.
But yeah, I mean, I think Abdul Carter is going to be really good. And James Franklin did say that they're going to move him back and forth between defensive end and linebacker to make it more challenging on opposing offenses of, hey, we're not going to just telegraph where he's going to line up every play, which again, there's a great conversation to be had here. And why didn't you do that with Micah Parsons? Right?
Well, but Michael Parsons walked so that Abdul Carter can run. They learned from the mistake. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think he's going to be really, really good. So yeah, I would start sizing him up now.
Okay.
All right. So I want to ask another offensive question because I do think we expect the Penn State defense to be pretty good, right?
Should be.
I mean, I feel like Iowa and Penn State are in similar spots here where they've made coordinator changes on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, Penn State also changed the defensive coordinator, but they have a defensive identity. You know the defense is going to be good, and the offense has held them back. Now, Iowa's offense was much worse than Penn State's offense, and Kirk Ferentz and Tim Lester would kill for Drew Allar right now. But, you know, Iowa was down here and then made the Tim Lester hire. And it's like people sort of say, well, I don't know about that. It's like, well, it's going to be better than it was. Now, Penn State's at a higher level. And like Andy Kotelnicki, maybe he is a genius, but he also doesn't have to be a genius, because if James Franklin is just saying, we know we have to be more explosive, isn't it definitely going to be better than it was? Yeah. And even if it's not perfect, that might be enough with a really good defense to give Penn State its best season in a while.
For sure. And to me, that was the thing last year was like, you didn't need a top 5 offense. You just needed a competent offense with a defense that good. And they couldn't even do that. And so that to me was like, which was really interesting when James Franklin was going through the hiring process. It was like, you weren't going to keep Manny Diaz here. Manny wanted to be a head coach. You could have thrown as much money at him as you wanted. It didn't matter. He wanted to be a head coach again, so he leaves. Well, the thing that James Franklin kept saying was, I have to be like realistic with the candidates that I'm interviewing, and like, you're all going to say, yeah, I'm going to make your defense better. Statistically, you could not make it much better than where they were at last year. So yeah, you can't really kind of top what they did, but so many playmakers, starting with your premature king of the North and Abdul Carter, but also like their secondary should again be really good. They've just kind of continued in a really good run of safeties. They got AJ Harris, a cornerback who's at Georgia, which had this kid signed with Penn State from the get-go, fans would have been like, oh my gosh, this is an elite prospect. But instead, he takes a kind of a winding route to get there. So yeah, they should be good. They should be pretty strong up the middle. But Abdul Carter is that kind of that Swiss Army knife that they're going to move around, and that's the challenge.
Are they going to be as aggressive under Tom Allen as they were under Manny Diaz?
I think so.
Okay.
To me, that would make sense, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, I think that's what you want to do.
I sometimes thought it was to their detriment too. Like maybe they got caught being a little too aggressive at times. I wonder if they might try to calibrate that a little bit.
I do wonder too if some of that last year was knowing that you maybe had to be just because your offense was, yeah, I mean it was you know, and you go back to the Ohio State game, right? And you're like, okay, yeah, I'm sitting there in the press box. I'm like, oh, they got to get a defensive touchdown or they got no shot, you know? And then of course, you know, James Franklin liked to say afterward, well, the game, it was closer than the final score, or it was closer at the end of the game. And it's like, yeah, James, like the touchdown at the end, like, you know, nobody's hanging a banner for that. Maybe Doug, but but I wouldn't. But yeah, I mean, I think the defense will be good.
Stayed within 10 points of Ohio State.
But did you see the banners they have hanging up over there? They had all the Big Ten championship ones. They're pretty nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Penn State 2016. I took a nice picture, tweeted it out.
That's good. So you just take that really nice banner and just put almost across the top of it, and you just hang it all over the facility.
Yeah, it was the peaked too soon banner.
Yeah. I think I went through my. Why am I doing this?
Uh-oh.
When I was filling out my ballot for my vote.
Oh, here we go.
But I went through. I had Ohio State, Penn State as the Big Ten championship game because I just I gave Oregon like a weird loss just to travel and all that stuff. And I don't know exactly for sure where Penn State's second Big Ten loss would be. Again, you mentioned some of those tough games. I also think they're going to lose at West Virginia in week 1, which again, everyone's going to go crazy if that happens. But like that's a 10-2 Penn State team. However, say they lose to Ohio State and they lose one more. Are they definitely in the playoff? Like you and I have kind of had this conversation, but like, do you think again, let's see if Penn State fans are angry about making the playoff and losing the first game. Let's see how angry they are if they're 10-2 and they don't make the playoff.
Your team 13, right?
Yeah.
Like to me, that is a bit like the doomsday scenario for Penn State. And I've heard it from some fans and they're like, yeah, just imagine we finally get the expanded playoff and we're the 13th team, right? Yeah, I mean, I think it would depend on what that second loss is, right? Like if you lose to USC, if you lose to Wisconsin. So you guys are, which is interesting, you guys are all in on them losing week 1 in Morgantown.
We like West Virginia.
We like West Virginia. And I just think like West Virginia, like that's their Super Bowl, right? Like they're in a conference where everybody's 2,000 miles away. Like when's the last time? I mean, they had the backyard brawl and like they get up for that, but this is like a to be big noon on Fox with like kind of a local rival also. And I think Garrett Green's a problem. I think West Virginia, I just think they'll be up for it.
So do I. I actually wanted to ask you, we'll probably hope to have you on again before that game because we could possibly not, I don't think we'd be more excited about that game. how is it viewed like in State College? Is it viewed as like a banger to start the season? They're almost like a 2-touchdown favorite. So is it just like, oh, that's an interesting opener, or is it like this is a serious opener?
The line has moved from 12 to 10.5.
It's 10.5.
I don't think fans are necessarily overly concerned with it, which they probably should be. And if their listeners are Kings of the North now, they're going to leave in a panic and be worried about it. I think because fans are still thinking about last year in terms of like, oh, open up with West Virginia last year. That was, you could make the argument, that was the game where the offense looked its best, right? It's like Drew Allard or Keandre Lambert-Smith, like, oh, everything's going to be great. Look at the offense now. So I think there's a little bit of that, but I also think there's the thought of, well, it's just, there's so much optimism with the offense where it's like, it has to be better this year. It's going to be better. So I don't think fans are too concerned about it. Cause it is one of the things I've gotten in my mailbag, and fans were like, shouldn't we be a little more concerned about this? And it's like, yeah, probably.
I think so. Cause it's not, we don't know what Andy Koltonicki is necessarily going to do at Penn State, but at least like West Virginia has seen his offenses before, right? I don't know that they're going to, I don't know that he's going to throw something out there that's going to surprise West Virginia. The players are different, although the talent of Kansas was pretty good, especially with that quarterback and running back. So I if it were a different non-conference opponent, one that was not in the Big 12, I think you would stand a decent chance of kind of springing a surprise offense on them. I don't think that is an issue here with West Virginia.
Yeah, that is a really good point, Bill. That is a good, and I think, again, it's the, I always think season openers are just weird in general because you don't really know what you have. And, we hear so much this year about, oh, Drew Allar's going to be a leader and we're working on making him more vocal. You got to go on the road week 1 and you got to prove it. And what happens if, he throws a pick early after last year and he was skittish and that crowd comes alive. I mean, what if there's a fumble early? What if this Tom Allen defense that's supposed to be really good somehow has a blown assignment early and then, you fall down 7-0 on the road. I can't wait. I'm excited.
I'm so excited for it.
That was such an astute football point you made about West Virginia knowing Andy Koltonicki. I'm going to put you in charge of the poll next year, and you can be sure to.
Wow,
that'll be your.
I think
chance.
if I get a vote next year, Doug, I think out of spite, I might just delete it. I'm going to vote in a different preseason poll. I'm going to start my own. And not invite Doug to my poll.
Please don't have another rival poll. There's enough polls. Don't do. Please, you're very powerful. I will bend the knee. I'll bend the knee. Let me keep my poll. I apologize. I love Audrey's spite. She's excellent. She knows what she's talking about with Penn State, and we really appreciate you taking time to join us here on Kings of the North.
I appreciate it, Doug, and I look forward to that email next year.
Joined now by Nathan Carter, Michigan State running back on Kings of the North. Thanks for being here.
Oh, pleasure to be here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
You are truly of the North. New York.
Yeah.
And you played at UConn. Now you're at Michigan State. Did you ever play in the snow, any snow games when you were in high school in New York?
No, I did not. But back in Pop Warner, I played in the last.
You did?
Yeah, not in high school though.
You liked it, or you hated it, or is it just one of those things you have to do?
It's one of those things you have to do.
I like snow football because it kind of maybe when you get tackled, it cushions the blow a little bit.
It's kind of fun, because it's not a lot of times you get to play in the snow, so it's fun in that area. But obviously the cold, no one really likes the cold, but you have to embrace it.
Yeah, toughens you up. Yeah. When you were coming out of high school, did you have any thoughts of like, man, maybe I'll try to go play somewhere warm? You wind up at UConn before you come to Michigan State. What were you thinking as a high school recruit?
Man, I just wanted to go to the best opportunity where I thought would lead me to success. And at that moment, UConn was that. Majority of my offers that I got were from the North. I weren't really from the South. But yeah, UConn was the best offer that I had. And, at that time, it was a great opportunity. So, yeah.
So when you were in the transfer portal world, you're having success at UConn. What was your decision making process like to get you to be a Spartan?
Yeah. I tell people all the time, it was almost like a leap of faith for me. I love UConn and I love the culture there. I love the relationships I built there. I really felt that God was calling me to go somewhere else, and I really didn't know where that was. So for me, it was taking a leap of faith, like, okay, I have to trust not in my own thoughts, my own ambitions, but I just trust in what God has for me. And at that moment, I was hurt too. So it's like, I don't even know if I put my name in the portal, if people are gonna, even want me, because I got injured, and obviously I had a season-ending injury with my shoulder. Thank God it wasn't a leg or anything, but still. So there's all these different fears in my mind and whatnot. But it was me taking a leap of faith, and I put my name in the portal. I actually got a lot more, recognition, a lot more offers than I thought I was going to go. And ultimately, the Lord led me to Michigan State, which was amazing. And now I'm here. I've been here for 2 years, and I'm glad to be a Spartan.
That must be very interesting, because you really find out sort of where you stand when you put your name in the portal, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, especially because you're having an injury, do you think like, I don't know if anyone's going to contact me? Like, is that in your head? Like, you're a good player, but when you're hurt, you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, it's definitely a fear. I didn't go in the portal not thinking that I was going to go anywhere. I had some knowledge, like, okay, I know that there are going to be some schools that are going to reach out, but are these going to be the only schools that reach out? So I mean, obviously, anyone going to the portal is hard. It's a portal is a dangerous place. Is what I tell people. And there's so many athletes that go into the portal that still have not found homes.
Yeah.
So for me, it's like, man, like I have so much fear, and it's like I didn't want to stay in my comfort zone, but I want to get out that comfort zone. And for me, getting out that comfort zone and taking that leap of faith will let me here to Michigan State, for me to be in this opportunity in this stadium. But if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be here right now.
Okay. So you get to Michigan State, and last year's a tough year at Michigan State.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like it's things happen that are completely out of your control. What's it like when that happens for a player, when there is kind of a chaotic situation that you guys didn't have anything to do with? How did you get through that season?
Yeah, I think that you just have to persevere through it. It's almost like life. When life hits you and you can't, and something happens with your life, with your family, or with your wife, your kids, something like that you can't control. How are you going to handle that? How are you going to handle that as a man? Are you going to, stand up and you got to fight? You got to keep going. You do what you can do to finish what you started, or are you just going to give up, throw in a towel? So for me and for my team, our mission was, hey, like, regardless of what happens, things we can't control, it is what it is. But we're not going to just throw in a towel. We're not just going to give up. What we're going to do is we're going to fight. We're going to persevere. We started this season with the right mindset. We're going to finish the season with the right mindset. And then what happens after that, it is what it is. So I think that, it takes a lot of maturity. It takes a lot of grit to be able to go through what we went through, and to be able to, like, you know what, I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep going out here, because people didn't stop coming to games. They didn't stop cheering for us. Like, my family was still driving to games. My family was still flying out the game. They didn't stop cheering for me. So why would I stop playing for them?
Oh, it's a really good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Like, they're still showing out, right? It's like, so I'm going to do it too, regardless of what's the circumstance around me.
Exactly.
But okay, so now it's more settled, right? Like, whoever the head coach, all right, we're going to come in. Now there's a new plan. What do you think it will allow everybody to do at Michigan State to do this year? If it's just like, okay, like maybe it's going to be just a little more normal because there won't be all this stuff happening. Yeah. Does it make it easier to even play better then if there's other stuff is settled?
I think for us, like our mindset is, hey, like this is a new season. Like, regardless, like last year was last year's season, this year is this year's season, and this year with this year's season, we just happen to have a new coaching staff. But the mission doesn't change. We still want to win. We still want to win championships. The business doesn't change. So what happens is, whatever is brought in, whether it's the coaching staff or it's the players, how can we all come together as a team, as a unit, to be able to win games? That's the mission. So what happened last year, that happened. It's good, it's gone as well. But now we have to look forward. Because if we continue to look back, we're not going to be able to look forward to what's in stored for us for this season. So we have to do what we can do now, and we have to train now. We have to work hard as a unit with the team that we have now, so that we can win games in the fall to accomplish all of our goals that we have.
By the way, you guys played the two teams in the national championship game last year.
Yeah,
that was a heck of a. That was a heck of a schedule. Like, you're watching the game right.
Two great teams. Yeah, two great teams.
We played those guys.
Yeah.
And you were pounding the ball in those games too. I think you had 17 carries against Washington, 17 carries against Michigan. It's like, all right, Nate, get out there and do your thing, right? But like that, you guys played some really good teams last year. When your rival wins the national championship, is it like tip of the cap? Is it like, oh, I can't believe Michigan won? Like, I don't know.
I think it's both. I think, like, I would be foolish for me to stand up here and say that they didn't earn their way to win championship, because they did. They went undefeated the whole year. That's hard to do in college football, especially in the conference that we play. So regardless of the rivalry, regardless of how we feel, they earned their way to be there, and they fought and they won games, and they did what they had to do. And they even had to go through adversity within themselves, regardless of how you want to call it. They had to go through adversity within themselves, like every other team has to go through adversity. They just came out on top, winning a championship. So like I say, it's a hats off to them, obviously, because like I say, you earned your way, and we all wish that we can be there. But at the end of the day, there's only two teams that go to the national championship. So it's that rivalry part of, oh man, yeah, it's Michigan. Then also it's that sportsmanship side. Like, you know what? They worked hard just like we did. They did exactly what they did, and they persevered to win the national championship on top. So we have to, as a respect thing, I think we have to tip our hat off to them.
Oh man, that's a really good answer, right? I mean, like, because you play your butt off against your rival, but you respect it too, right?
Yeah.
When they earn it, they earn it. You dealt with an injury in your career, crazy season last year. Like, what do you think you're ready to do this year, and how much are they going to be giving you the ball?
I'm just ready to step into that leadership role. Not just on the field, but off the field. Do what I can do to help these young guys, to help whoever's coming in to be great men, which is ultimately the end goal. So how can we walk away from this to become great men, not just great Michigan State football players. And then as far as the football aspect, I just want to do what I can do to help our team win the game, whether that's the coach putting the ball in my hands, whether that's me going out there and blocking for the quarterback, whether that's me going out there and catching a ball, whatever it is, I want to make sure that I'm capable of doing all those things so that our team can ultimately win.
What do you think, Aiden Childs?
Oh, I love that guy. He's such a goofy guy, and he's so mature for his age. And he's a him, not just him, but all the other quarterbacks. Like they're like a bond. The brotherhood bond within the quarterback room, which is amazing to see. And Aiden, he's a great football player. He's gonna be a great leader for offense. He could be a great quarterback, and it's exciting to see him play. And he's just a great guy to be able to interact with.
Okay, I'm very curious to watch this Michigan State season because it's just hard when things happen and you're kind of not able to show maybe, right? Mm-hmm. Even though you're still playing as hard as you can, like it's just hard, man.
Yeah.
So what this can look like, we know how good Michigan State football has been over the years. So I'm very, very curious to see what you guys can do this year.
No doubt. We're going to do some great things.
He's Nathan Carter. He's going to get in the ball a lot for the Spartans. Thank you for joining us here on Kings of the North.
Thank you, guys.
Joined now on Kings of the North by Ben Scott, the center for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. One thing good off the bat already, he's an offensive lineman, which makes Bill very happy. But also, you are not born of the North, but you have chosen to come to the North. You're from Hawaii, and you played at Arizona State before you came to Nebraska. Why did you choose to be a Cornhusker?
I think my mom is actually from Nebraska. So
she's of the North. Okay.
Yep. Mom's from the North. My dad's from New Zealand, but they met in Hawaii. And, after playing in the Pac-12, I really wanted to come and join the Big Ten and play some real lineman football, Come to the North.
Amen.
Do you want to get up and hug him right now, Bill?
Just glad it's music to my ears. We were talking to Jonah Monheim up from USC as well, asking about like their transition from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. And it was along those lines. Like the Big Ten just has and you've done it now. You played a year in the Big Ten after coming from the Pac-12. Is it true that the Big Ten is a more physical brand of football and it's more about the trenches than maybe the Pac-12 is?
Oh yeah, every Big Ten team is not as high scoring, not as much like air raid, spread it out. We're gonna get down and dirty like 12, 13 personnels. We're gonna run the ball, pound the rock, and you got a lot of bigger, stronger defensive linemen out there than the Pac-12 had. So, it's really going to be like stack it up and see who wants it more.
So your mom is from Nebraska. Mm-hmm. So what, was she fired up when you decided to transfer to Nebraska?
Yeah, her whole side of the family is still living in Nebraska, and they were fired up to say the least.
Okay, so here you are positioned to help bring Cornhusker ball back. So you know what that means. When you think about what this program did with Matt Rhule in year one and the new staff last year, what do you think this program might be ready to do now in year two of this coaching staff?
Yeah, we're in this offseason, we're really taking that next step. We want to play in January. So, we're taking everything day by day, but that's our end goal is to play in January. And, I think we really done a good job of doing that.
What was it like for you, Ben, to go from Arizona State, where it's a beautiful campus, there's a lot to do, maybe there's not a hyper focus on Arizona State football, to Lincoln, where the only thing people care about is Nebraska football? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was a lot different. I could go out and go grab a bite to eat wherever in Tempe, and no one would even bat an eye. So, coming out here, you go anywhere and someone knows you. Someone's asking you questions about the coaches, the offense, and all that. So it's a lot different. But, it's something that you got to enjoy, It's not going to be there forever. So it's kind of nice having guys, asking you questions about what you're doing all the time. And I think it's really cool.
That is a great threshold of how intense your fan base is. Can the offensive lineman go out to eat without being recognized? Right. Arizona State, yes. Nebraska, no. God, that makes me love Nebraska fans even more. What can you feel from the fans, right? Because Nebraska football, this stretch here hasn't been what Nebraska football has been traditionally, but it feels like you guys are pointed in the right direction. When Nebraska football gets back to what it wants to be, what do you think that fan base, your mom's family, what's everybody going to be like?
Oh, it's going to be crazy. I mean, they already are. Like, we go out there for pregame warm-up, and they're packed in the stadium already. So, it's a wild fan base, and they're there for us, and they're supporting us throughout the whole way, no matter what our record was the previous year. They're going to be there in the stadium. So it's really cool.
What happened, Ben? Winter workouts, spring ball, the last few months after spring ball, that just gives you the confidence that Nebraska is going to take that next step this year?
Oh, we've been taking that step in the weight room, credit to Coach Campbell. We've been in there grinding. We do the hardest offseason program I've ever seen. So it's something that we focus on, is like finishing that and being a tough team. So, we're doing a lot of hard workouts, hard conditioning, and I think that will really help us when it comes to season.
I've wondered about that, because that was sort of like the backbone of the Nebraska program, sort of in its heyday. It was like that strength and conditioning program that was better than everybody else's in the country. They won out on the field and then showed you that the strength and conditioning was better than everybody in the country. You guys feel like you're starting to bring that back a little bit?
Oh yeah, I think it's already back.
Okay.
We go out, we have this thing called mat drills. We have this thing called team commitment week, and we go out there and we just compete, and we just lift a lot of weight, run a lot. We're just beating down our bodies, but then by the time season comes, we're ready for anything.
You are an old veteran center, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be snapping to a true freshman quarterback.
Yep.
What can you do for Dylan Raiola when you've been through the wars, when you've been up there identifying what needs to happen pre-snap? What is your responsibility to a young quarterback, and how much can you help him?
Yeah, it's a lot for both of us. We got to see the defense with one set of eyes, and calling the mic out, calling out blitzes and all that stuff. And he's helping me out too. He can see a lot better from his perspective, and he'll call out stuff and help me out. So it's good to have both of us there that know what we're doing, and he has a good background with protections and blitzers and stuff. So he knows what he's doing, and we got a veteran O-line, so it helps me out and helps him out. And I think at the end of the day, we just got to see everything.
If you were starting a freshman quarterback, wouldn't you want a fifth-year veteran center snapping to him?
I think it's almost necessary. Like I've seen what it looks like sometimes when teams try to do first-time center and first-time quarterback. It doesn't usually go very well, or there's a pretty lengthy learning process there that doesn't quite look that nice for the first few games. So no, I think having a guy like Ben up front is a need for Nebraska with a true freshman quarterback. What's the relationship like with you? And do you? And I know like offensive linemen are always close. Do center and QB like have to be pretty close off the field as well?
Yeah, I'd say it's pretty important to have a quarterback center relationship like that. And I think we're going every day. We're going to quarterback center exchange, and we get our snaps in. And he's a good guy to have around the locker room. He's real energy guy. He's always around playing music on the aux. So he's a good guy to have, and it's good to build that relationship with him.
You ready for this Colorado game coming up? You guys got a little something for Colorado this year?
Oh yeah, we're ready.
What's I mean, I think like that's such a great traditional rival. I don't know if sometimes, guys like us overdo it, but like when somebody gets you, you want to get them back, right? Is that real?
Oh yeah. Like they come, or we go into their house and we don't finish the game, and now they're coming into our house, and it's a little bit bigger of a game now.
Yeah. We've looked a lot at schedules and like how things could play out. Like there's a lot of potential for you guys. You're not overlooking anybody, but we're excited already when the trip you guys are going to make to Ohio State. That has a chance to be a banger. We think that like there could be two really good teams with two really good records. I'm not trying to ask you to get ahead or anything, but just the idea of like, man, like a really good Nebraska team coming to play in the shoe. That'll be fun, right?
Yeah, I think it'll be great. You always hear all this talk about Ohio State and all this. So, it'll be fun to go into their house and see what we can end up doing.
So you say your dad's from New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
Ever play rugby? Was rugby ever on your radar, or was it always football?
No, my dad played rugby, and wasn't really in my card. So I stuck to football.
Okay.
Keep a helmet You know,
Yeah. Well, you learn. Well, I guess it doesn't matter for you because you're an offensive lineman, but you do learn some pretty good tackling form and how to protect yourself when you're playing rugby without the helmet on.
oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
All right. So how often do you get back to Hawaii?
Now not too often. My parents actually moved to Arizona, so
Okay.
I don't go back too often, but I'm sure I'll be back pretty soon.
Okay. Well, we're glad you're in the North, man. Are you
Yeah.
glad you're in the North?
Oh yeah.
Okay. See, we take like it. It's not about where you've been or where you're born. It's about where you are now.
That's right.
And Ben's with us, man.
That's right. Although, if you want to go back to Hawaii, I wouldn't blame you.
Yeah, no. You can go to Hawaii. It's a nice place to go on vacation for a month. We think it's good for college football for Nebraska to be good, for Nebraska to be like a big time program. Won't that be fun when that happens? Like, not that it's never been a big time program, but again, it's the standard, right? That Nebraska hasn't been at the standard it has been historically. What's it going to be like when Nebraska is competing again at the top of college football?
Oh, I think it's gonna be great. You know, we already got the best fans in the nation, so imagine if we're up there. You know.
Yeah, that'll be fun, man. All right, he's Ben Scott. He's going to be snapping the ball, and you guys should be watching him. Good luck, and thanks for joining us here, Ben, on Kings of the North.
Appreciate it.
Pleased to be joined on Kings of the North by USC offensive lineman Jonah Monheim. Jonah, I'm a connoisseur of offensive line play. I appreciate it. I appreciate offensive line play, but I also like to hear the stories of how guys arrive at playing the offensive line. So have you just been a big kid your whole life and always played the offensive line? Were you something else before someone said, like, no, that guy, he needs to be up front?
Yeah, I grew up, I wasn't an offensive lineman my entire life, but I was kind of the bigger kid, whatever. Grew up playing sports year-round, baseball, football, basketball, soccer, and then just kind of kept growing. And then about sophomore year, hit a big growth spurt. And from then on, I was like, all right, it's maybe time to focus on football. And with that was like, what's my best shot to be successful at this sport? And it was O-line.
Yeah. At that time, did you think football is definitely my best sport, or was it football is the one that makes the most sense because of how big I've gotten?
The second one.
Okay.
Growing up, I'd say baseball was my best sport.
Okay.
It was the one I spent the most time playing, year round. Really enjoyed it when I was young and all that. But like I said, I just kept growing, kept getting bigger, and really just started to fall in love with football.
What was the baseball game like?
Baseball in terms of what?
Like, what were you? I'm assuming you're a
positions.
power hitter, positionally. What were you doing?
When I was real young, you play shortstop and catcher and all the fun stuff. But as I got older, I pretty much just played the corners and pitched a little bit, mainly third base.
Okay. So this is Kings of the North. We are a northern centric college football show. You guys from Southern California, obviously joining a predominantly northern conference. I am wondering for yourself, for UCLA, maybe a little less so for the Oregon and Washington guys, but have you ever played a sporting event in the snow?
I haven't.
Are you looking forward to doing it?
Yes.
Why?
It's fun.
Yeah.
I think, the elements are challenging. So, you get a fun result from that.
Yeah. I think it's more fun for the guys up front, right? You don't have to worry about like fumbling the ball and stuff like that. It's a little easier for to play in those elements.
Ball security is the thing with centers, snapping
That's
it
true.
and elements and stuff. But
yeah.
like I said, I haven't played in it. But yeah.
So what is, I'm sure you've been asked this, a few times already since the news initially came out and obviously leading up to now where you guys are here at Big Ten Media Days, but as a Southern California guy, as a USC football player, to be coming to the Big Ten, how's that feel? What are your thoughts on playing in this conference now?
Yeah, it feels good. I think it's great for the sport. I think it's, it's good for us and all the teams that are involved. And certainly there's some challenges, obviously traveling coast to coast will be tough at times, but overall, I think it's great for the sport. I think it's great for the conference and great for the teams involved.
I think college football fans probably assume, the conferences have certain identities, right? And I think that the Big Ten has a reputation for being a little more rugged, physical, running the football, line of scrimmage play, all that kind of stuff. How's USC fit into that?
Right. I think that's something that, we've acknowledged and had to address moving forward. What type of conference are we entering? What are our opponents going to be like? How do we need to be as a football team? What does our identity need to be moving forward? And that's certainly, something that we've talked about.
Are you the guy that spearheads that? You're up front there. You're kind of the face of the USC offensive line, I would say, not to put too much on you, but I think people are going to be curious just sort of like how you guys sort of acquit yourself in this conference compared to the Pac-12. And maybe you think the Pac-12 is just as physical. I don't want to, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what have you done, I guess, or do you feel like you need to do anything to like get your O-line, maybe help your D-line get prepared for a potentially different style of football?
Yeah, I think there's been a strong emphasis, this offseason on weight gain, just, from our strength staff, our nutrition staff, things like that, just looking at average body weights across the positions, throughout the conference. So there's been an emphasis on weight gain and things like that. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to how our roster is formed as well. What's our identity going to be? What are our strengths going to be? What are our weaknesses going to be? Which, you find out a lot during camp and, as the season progresses.
Is there anything you guys can do? Can you construct like a giant snow globe in Southern California or something, like help get you guys ready to play in those elements when the time does come?
That'll be cool, but I don't think we can do that currently. But
just like a movie lot or something. There's got to be somebody in Hollywood that can get you guys like a.
We always get some practices in the rain.
Okay.
Especially if it's like a good rain that day. It's pouring pretty hard. We'll make an emphasis of like, all right, if this is the hardest rain we're gonna get, like we gotta practice hard. We gotta feel like what it's gonna feel like, to be there. Obviously, it's not snow or not as harsh of conditions that a game day can bring, but. We got to take advantage of those moments.
I want to go talk a little more offensive line play with you. How do you arrive at whether you're going to be sort of like a tackle or guard or a center? Like what is that process like as you go throughout your high school and college career?
I think a lot of it just has to do with genetics and frame.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, it has to do with athleticism and how you can move and how you can bend and all that, but it goes hand in hand with just basic genetics. What's your length like? Your frame, how much weight can you carry? Are you more of a power guy? Are you more of an athleticism guy? Like, what are your strengths in the O-line world? And then kind of, building the line throughout there. Where do you fall as a position? It has a lot to do with room needs as well. What is the needs of the room that you enter when you're a freshman and coming into college? Yeah.
So for you, when you said about your sophomore year, you realized like football is it. It's probably going to be in the offensive line. Did you have a vision of what that might look like for you positionally, and how's that changed, I guess, over the last few years?
Yeah, so I think in high school, it's pretty typical, if you're a decent offensive lineman, you usually find yourself at left tackle, which is what I played in high school, knowing that, coming to college, I probably wouldn't be a left tackle just based off of frame and, whatever it may be. But funny enough, I ended up playing that the last year and playing right tackle the years before that. So, but, you've always got to be versatile as an offensive lineman. I like to view myself as positionless. I'm whatever the team needs to be. I can adjust and adapt to, whatever coaches and whatever teammates need me to be. So, I've played a lot of different spots over the years, and obviously this year now I'm coming in as a center.
What has the process been like, I guess, to get yourself ready to play center? Obviously, snapping and stepping is a totally different thing. I imagine from anything you've done prior on the offensive line. Is that as difficult of a transition as I'm envisioning, or is like for a guy who's just played the position as long as you come by it somewhat naturally?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
I mean, it's definitely a transition. You come from only prioritizing your weight and your balance for your steps and for your run blocks and pass blocks and whatever it is, to now all of that's got to be centered around delivering a good snap first.
Yeah.
And then, going hand in hand with your blocking. So it's definitely been a transition, but at the same time, at the end of the day, it is all just O-line play, and you're executing a lot of the same blocks. Obviously it's the same schemes and run plays and pass plays and whatever it is. So it is a bit of a transition, but at the same time, we're just playing O-line.
Was the move to center because you wanted to do it, or because the coaches came to you and said, okay, we have a hole here, you're probably our best guy, we want to put you in the middle of the line?
A little bit of both.
Okay.
Knowing, looking forward, if I get to play at the next level, it's probably not going to be tackle. So that moving inside is beneficial for me, and also from our team. As coach comes to me and says, we think this will be good for our team and for you, just something that kind of just happens.
We told you the name of our show, and you asked us if it was related to a certain HBO show that we will not name because we don't want to get sued. But you said you're in the middle of watching it right now.
Yes.
Like fresh, just started watching it.
Yep.
How far into it are you, and what do you think so far?
I am almost done with season 3. I started it about a month ago.
Okay.
I love it so far.
Okay. You have kind of the look with, you're a bigger guy, got the longer hair. Yeah. I could see you like swinging a sword, body, like a body of armor suit.
Yeah. Yeah. That'd be cool. That'd be a cool life. It'd be harsh. It'd be tough, but it'd be a cool one.
Yeah.
It's a good show.
I think you don't play in the North, but you have a Northern look to you. And I mean that is 100% a compliment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
Thank you for that.
All right. Jonah Monheim, USC offensive lineman. Thanks so much for joining us here on Kings of the North.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Joined now by Martin Jarmond, the athletic director for the UCLA Bruins. Formerly had come up through the ranks in Michigan State, at Ohio State, was the AD at Boston College. Now you're back in the Big Ten, man.
Back in the Big Ten. I'm back, baby.
All right. So what year is it? This
Good
is
to
like
see you, by the way, Doug. I haven't seen you in a long time,
Martin,
man.
We go back. I remember it was like Martin's making the schedule at Ohio State. It's like so fast. It's like, oh, I mean, they're probably playing games now still that you scheduled.
Oh, I remember when they played in Notre Dame last year. I scheduled that game. I remember how Gene Smith, when we told him, he was like through the moon and getting the game scheduled, and then they played it.
Wasn't it nice?
Crazy,
Isn't it fun when it works out?
crazy.
So, like, leaving his mark. You started thinking about UCLA and the Big Ten maybe before other people were thinking about that idea.
That might be a fair statement.
Tell us about so your Big Ten experience and roots, and you get to UCLA, but you start to maybe see the future. How do you start percolating at UCLA when you think about the future of the athletic program?
So I knew that college athletics was going through dynamic change. You had the transfer portal, you had NIL emerging, and this was in 2021. You've got to skate to where the puck is going, if I can borrow that hockey analogy. And when it's so much change, you've got to be bold, you've got to be different, and you've got to think different. And so the benefit that I had of being in the Big Ten, 7 years at Michigan State, 8 years at Ohio State, and then being in the ACC, 3 years as the athletic director at Boston College, I was familiar with the Big Ten. I was familiar with, from a conference perspective, how much you needed to be in a position of strength in your conference, and football and to a lesser extent basketball, but really football.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I started floating the idea about, maybe we should look at joining the Big Ten if there's an opportunity. And I had Big Ten connections, obviously, and different people I talked to, and wasn't sure what they were going to do. And, but I did know that college athletics was going through consolidation, and it's just like any other business. When it goes through consolidation, you've got to make sure that your brand, your prestige, that matters, especially with eyeballs and things like that. And with the Big Ten, from my time in the Big Ten, I knew that the two most important things were academics, high academic, research-focused institutions. UCLA, we're the number one public institution in the country, high academic. And then in the Big Ten, highest level of athletics, competition. And UCLA, we have 123 national championships, second most in the country. Last 20 years, we won 88 conference championships across 17 sports. So we're broad-based excellence. We're elite academically and athletically. And so I thought it made sense, and I know that the Big Ten should be in LA, should be the West Coast, number 2 market. And the brand, UCLA, like, it just made too much sense to me. But maybe it didn't to other people at the time.
How much of a geographic barrier was there in the first conversations there? I mean, is it like, Martin, we're in California, they're in the Midwest, what are you talking about? Or how do you get people over that hurdle?
I never looked at it that way because, think about the internet and what it did, right? As far as connection and connectivity. I always thought about it. If you're competing at UCLA or Big Ten institutions, if you're a high athletic elite competitor, you've been traveling since you were like 13 years old. If you're a soccer player, if you're a volleyball player, you've been traveling to Florida, to Texas, to a showcase out in Las Vegas. Like, you've been going all over, and your parents have been going too. So to me, our student athletes, who we serve, and that's what we do, that wasn't going to be as big of a deal. It's almost like it mattered more to the adults in the room than it did to the student athletes, because they're used to travel.
Yeah.
It's different. You and me traveling. I mean, we're here at Football Media Day. We're traveling to Hawaii August 31st, but then we have a bye the next week. We're traveling to LSU. Yeah, that's a long trip, but these guys can recover. And if you talk to the student athletes and even our guys here, the travel is not a deal to them.
Okay.
And so I never looked at the geography. I don't let things like that stand in the way of something that makes too much sense.
Right.
And where college athletics is going, I felt strongly that UCLA belonged in the Big Ten. and that we were going to uplift the Big Ten and vice versa. And that's why we made the move.
And it's one of those, we see how the pieces have moved around now, but it's hard if it's like right now you're like, oh man, like, whoa, there's kind of like consolidation and there's 2 giant conferences and there's this one over here. I guess we better look into that. It's over. It's too late, right? You need to see it.
You got to be a
before it
first
happens.
mover.
Yeah,
You got to be a first mover.
Yeah.
And that gives you an advantage because you want to be on the inside looking out, not on the outside looking in.
So we're at football media days in this world now. And one of the things we talked about is this is an 18-team conference. This is one of those things where it's like, you know what? Not bad. An 18-team conference, like 9th. That, like, nobody wants to finish 9th. You're in the top half. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of the, we have to help people. And I keep having the same conversation, help people define success, because it's very different. But as you think about where UCLA football is with this transition, with the new head coach, what do you feel like you guys have to do to be as competitive as you want to be in this new world?
Yeah, I don't think in terms of wins and losses, especially when everything is new. You're going to be in a conference of 18 teams, right? So I look at progress from a growth standpoint. How are we recruiting? How are we developing our young men? How are we developing the staff? How competitive are we on the field? I look at all of those things, and it's a growth metric that I evaluate. And if you look at UCLA football right now, no one's played any games yet. We're 36th in the country in recruiting. At this time last year, we were in the 60s. We have made significant progress from a recruiting standpoint, from an energy in the program standpoint, from NIL from a year ago to now. Leaps and bounds, still more to do, but I look at the continual progress that we've made as a football program. And make no mistake, we have a rich history in our football program. Obviously, Deshaun Foster played at UCLA, unbelievable player. He's won at every level. He's a leader of men. And so he may be a first-time head coach, but he's been coaching for a long time. And he's been a part of some very successful programs. And so I'm excited for him, and I'm excited for our staff. And, we've made a lot of investments in football because, at the end of the day, you've got to have a healthy football program. That's what matters, I would argue, more than anything as we move forward in college athletics. You better be healthy in football. You better invest in football because you don't have the success across the board without having a healthy football program that attracts the eyeballs and the revenue and the interest and the engagement with alumni and donors. That comes from football. 90% roughly of revenue is derived from football. So you gotta make sure you have the infrastructure correct and invest in it at all times.
You were talking about, how this is going to work for your athletes and that kind of thing. And how have you been preparing your fan base? Like, what kind of conversations have you had with your fans of like, this is a new world? Like, they're going to be traveling to new places. Do you think your fan base is enthused? Are they curious? Are they a little worried? Are they like nostalgic for the old days? Like, where are UCLA fans right now?
I think it's all of the above. I think everybody's different. You're going to have, I'll give you a prime example. ESPN just came out a few days ago. I was actually on vacation with the top 25 college football stadiums in the country. And I looked at it, and number 1 was LSU. Number 2 was the Rose Bowl. And then number 5, I believe, was Penn State. We're playing there. We're playing at LSU. Number 6 was Washington. We're playing at Washington. Number 16 was Nebraska. We're playing at Nebraska. So I read this while on vacation. I said, you know what? This is an unbelievable opportunity for UCLA Bruins to travel to some of the best historic stadiums and see our young men compete. And by the way, we're in the number 2 ranked stadium, and I'd argue it's number 1 from the history and tradition that is the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
To watch and cheer the Bruins on. So we put out a graphic, I'm calling, and our marketing team did a great job, and we sent something out to say, look, this is the opportunity that you have now. We're going into the Big Ten. We're going to play in a number 1, number 5, number 6, number 16 ranked stadium. And by the way, you can come to the home games in the number 2 ranked stadium.
Yeah.
And that's a great opportunity. Again, you've got to engage your fans. You've got to talk to them. You've got to educate them, because a lot of our fans don't know about some of the Big Ten. They don't know what it's like to go to Penn State. So when I have dinners and I'm meeting with donors, I talk about, you got to come to Penn State. Like it's going to be a great experience playing at Penn State because I've been to Penn State plenty of times. LSU, I've never been. That's going to be exciting, and competing at that stage. So it's exciting, but also too, our fans are realistic. We had a long time in the Pac-12. Not playing some of our Pac-12 opponents. That's going to be a shift for us. But I can tell you, just in single game ticket sales already, Iowa Friday night, those sales dwarf some of the other games that we would normally have.
Okay.
Even Indiana's our Big Ten home opener that has sold well. So I'm excited because I think our fans are excited for new teams, new games, getting familiar with them. And then also too, we're going to get back to playing some of our old rivals as well. We did a series announced last week with Cal Berkeley from 26, 27, 28, 29. And, I thought that was important to continue to play.
That's great. In a world where conferences are less about geography, I really think you have to, in your non-conference, try to attack some of those geographic rivalries and make those happen. And that makes a lot of sense because it's not, all right, you still want to play the people down the road sometimes. And if you have to do it in the non-conference, you have to do it in the Iowa and Iowa State play every year. So, I love when I hear, okay, UCLA is going to prioritize something like that.
Yeah, and you know what? We do it for our fans. We do it for Bruins that are in the Northwest and in the Bay Area.
Awesome.
We want to make sure we still have a presence there. And it matters, Cal Berkeley, UCLA, the fans, the households divided. We got to make sure throughout all this change in college football that we preserve the traditions and the rivalries and the things that make college football so unique.
Yep.
We better do that. I know we're going to do that at UCLA. We're going to bring back the Bruin walk of what our teams used to do. We're going to do some things that preach the tradition, the pageantry of college football, because that's what separates us. That's what makes it different. And you can't lose sight of that.
So I gotta be honest here. This is Kings of the North, right? We talk about schools where it snows.
Well, you got to change that.
Change
that.
Where are you from? Where are you from?
I'm from North Carolina originally.
Okay. But you worked at Michigan State. You worked at Ohio State.
Yep.
You worked at Boston College. You've probably shoveled some snow in your life,
I've
right?
shoveled some snow.
We're trying to figure out because UCLA and USC, it's nice there, isn't it? Nice and warm and sunny,
man,
right?
It's sunny every day. You see the sun every day.
So that's not what we want.
It's a little different.
Now you're rubbing it in. Now I'm trying to extend an olive branch, and you're rubbing it in. What should we call UCLA and USC? You're not of the North. We can't pretend geography doesn't exist, and we're jealous of the sunshine a little bit. So are you honorary members of the North? Because we're going to be talking. You're in the Big Ten. You're playing all these northern schools.
We're part of the North, baby. We're part of it, man.
Now
listen, what I mean?
But I know what you're going to do. When you recruit against these northern schools, you could be like, "Oh, it's so sunny down
look at
here."
the sunshine.
See,
and the weather.
you can't. If you use the weather to your advantage in recruiting, you're not of the North.
Think about
you
it
don't
this.
drop this sunshine on us, Martin.
When you were 18, 19 years old, can you imagine having the opportunity to live in Los Angeles, live in Westwood?
Believe I'm allowing a
and
sunshine
be at a top-notch
recruiting
academic
pitch
institution, man. Come on, man. That's the life.
If
That's
there
the
are
dream.
northern teenagers out there watching this,
Come to UCLA.
Oh my God, get this man off the show. He's Martin Jarmond. He's making things happen in college sports, and I think it is great. Who knew that your Big Ten experience was going to lead to this? But it's so valuable. I think it's great to have these 4 new schools in the Big Ten, and I think it's great to have somebody like you with these roots out there on the West Coast, man.
You're going to see some great football in the Big Ten. These matchups, and
excited.
You'll see more consolidation, but you'll see the game grow in ways that it hasn't. That college
agree.
football playoff is going to make games in November more important than they've ever been for more teams, which I think is important to the regular season.
Yes.
And just having the media partners that the Big Ten has with Fox, NBC, CBS. Buckle up, man. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be good.
Yep.
Martin Jarmond, thank you for joining us here on Kings of the North, not Kings of the Sunshine. Thanks, man.
Good to see you, brother.
And that's it for this Kings of the North. Thanks to everybody who sat down and joined us today. If you want to follow us on Twitter or on Instagram, it's KOTNCFB. You can find us there. We'll get out in the socials even a little bit more. Bill taught me what an Instagram story was today.
Productive day.
Yeah. And now I was like, can I do 30 things on my Instagram story? And Bill's like, okay, that's not how. My kids do explain to me like you can over Instagram.
Yes.
Because we'll go on a vacation and my kids will wait until the whole vacation is over and then put up 4 photos.
Mhm.
And we're like, well, why didn't you just do 20 photos every day from vacation? And they're like, Dad,
One-stop shopping, and then you get the whole
Stop.
recap. Yeah.
So I just want to put up 20 photos. Anyway, thanks as always to our great producer, Mike Urostowski, who makes us look good and sound good. Thanks to our guests. Thanks to you guys for making Kings of the North part of your week. He's Bill Landis. I'm Doug Lesmerises, and that was Kings of the North.